Fotosyntech, and welcome to another episode of Meet the Grower. Now, today we've got a guest that may not be familiar to you, unless, of course, you've seen some of my live streams where he's joined us a few times. Today, I'd like to welcome Smokin Ernie.
What's up, people?
How's it going,
Happy
brother?
to see you. Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, man. Welcome back. Welcome back. Glad to have you on the show. And this time, just you and I, just chatting.
I appreciate it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I recognize the fact that you've got a wealth of experience there, Ernie, and definitely wanted to have you on the show to talk about some of that stuff and, well, some of the stuff that you've got going on now. But we'll get into that here in a minute. First, shout out to our sponsor, Mars Hydro. And again, I got to get a light to actually show that light off a little bit better. But we've got it turned off so you can't see the plant that's growing underneath it because YouTube doesn't like that sort of thing. And if you like what I'm doing here, you can always support me on Patreon. Link down in the description. That being said, Smokin Ernie. Let's talk growing. Let's talk you, brother. Let's talk about you and everything that kind of, well, not everything, but the highlights that have gotten you to this point in your life, in your grow career. How did you get to where you are now?
Well, I probably started when I was 20 and took that first hit off a wooden old pipe at a convention back in the college days. And I wasn't blown away at that point, but I knew there was a connection.
Yeah.
And over the years, I always smoked and always enjoyed it, got into drinking and whatnot, but didn't always enjoy that. But the smoking has always been there for me through a couple of different careers, a couple of different ups and downs of life. And it's always been one thing that's been good to me. So. And as of getting to this point, as of growing wise, I felt that I could do a much better job than the stuff that I was getting from whoever. And that's kind of the way it was happening, it was whoever you could get the deal from for the week. And they had no idea what the strain was. They said, oh, this is the good stuff. So it's an extra $20.
Yeah.
Something. And, so yeah, about 6 years ago, my state went legal to grow. So I decided that would be my point of entry, and I haven't looked back since. Been growing every opportunity I can. And now I've finally made myself into the industry and growing commercially now.
So, living the dream, man. That's so awesome.
Yeah. It's
so awesome.
It is. It's so happy and just a super environment of awesomeness is the best way to put it. I mean, everyone you go there, even on like after a long weekend or something, or a crappy beginning of a day, Monday or something like that, everyone still gets smiles on their face. They're happy to be there. I mean, how could you not? You're growing weed. I mean, it's it's a perfect thing.
Yeah, for sure, man. And getting in there, happy plants, that sort of thing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do specifically in industry?
So I'm working with the cultivation crew. So we're the bones of the operation, I guess you could say. One of the guys at work calls us the varsity team, and we prune, tie up, water. Pretty much the basic care. It's an all organic living soil operation.
Nice.
So we use beneficial insects. We do some sprays, but most of them are beneficial or like a natural fungicide or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget the exact names of them. I've only had to spray a couple times, but so it's general care. But what is really mind blowing is the amount of plants that you need to take care of.
Yeah.
Which is not the concept isn't different as of growing, but the concept is managing what can get done and what needs to be done as the business.
Yeah.
So like, the business kind of comes first. It's like, we'd love to experiment, do different things, different pheno hunts, different types of ways of growing. But there's also a deadline of like having to have product in such a period of time. So in that aspect, it's a little bit tougher. You don't get to push a plant as much as you'd like. Where I can do at home, I can flower something 12 weeks if I wanted, or longer. So
Yeah, schedule is schedule is schedule is schedule. So I
absolutely.
can appreciate that. Hey, that is too cool, man. I've never been to a professional facility, anything like that. I'm hoping, one day to maybe go tour one as part of the show here, but we shall see.
Right.
Now, going back into the personal grow, why don't you tell us about 6 years ago, you decided you were starting growing, and how did that go? What was your first grow like? What was it about?
The first grow. So I had built a little secret doorway in my old house with a little cabinet, and I had everything going. I had some little plants started, and started reading some stuff on space heaters, and my wife kind of mentioned a couple of things about the space heater, and I was like, oh, you get it in my head like space heater bad, cause fire.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, so we'll switch it to the office. So I switched to my office that had heat. Ran a T5 light the whole process. Just switched the bulbs out at flower time.
Yeah.
And then I grew a blue dream, and dried. I got 1.5 ounces off the first run, and it was a purple, a very subtle purple, not even subtle. I mean, it was purple, but when you ground it up, it had like a nice green and purplish
Yeah.
tinge to it, which brings me to another purple dream I grew a few years ago. It was beautiful blue and purples, and it was just crazy colors.
That's awesome. So when you first started, then were you no-till, organic, all that stuff, or like most of us, did you start with the bottle?
No, I started with the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really, I knew what I knew from reading and what I could get either from Amazon or from the hardware store. And Fox Farms was probably the easiest one to get. Not too expensive, and I mean it worked. I found that their soil was pretty decent and had a decent charge to it and would last a bit, but you still needed to add some sort of bottled stuff to it. And when I got to Nectar of the Gods, or Nectar for the Gods, whichever way it is, that is when the organic started for me. I had started thinking more about it, because essentially I started growing is why because I know what's going into it.
Yeah.
So it's as natural as I can get it at this point.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely appreciate that. And just like yourself, I started with the bottle, and then there was just something that clicked and said, I'm going to try this organic thing, and no turning back in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always gardened as a kid, and growing up, always had vegetable gardens of sort, and have always done a sort of no-tilling kind of approach, or always added compost and dead leaves and added stuff back to the earth rather than spraying bottled stuff. Even with my vegetable gardens, I've gotten into the synthetic when I was in earlier years, and then moved on to amending the soil.
Yep.
Versus using bottled stuff, and things tasted better, grew better, and definitely the cannabis smokes better.
Yeah, I quite like it myself from the organic run. It's that whole build it up and then let it do its thing approach that really speaks to me. I mean, there's that, a couple of days a month where you do have to put in a considerable amount of work, but I don't miss measuring out the bottles on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
So you kind of touched on your grow space a little bit. Why don't you tell me about where you're growing? And I know you've got a couple different things going on and how it's evolved over time.
Well, it started, outdoor, I started with the 5 gallon bucket essentially and just went for that. Now I'm upgraded to a small little greenhouse. It's 11, what is it, 11 by 7 or something like that. So,
That's decent.
it's not too bad. Um, and this year I've got it kind of figured out. I put a couple fans in there to keep the air flowing very well, which seemed to help quite a bit. Um, and as of my indoor grow, that's kind of evolved from a tent to rooms built into my shed. So my shed is kind of turned into my grow area, and um, I do a scrog most of the time,
Yep.
and usually run at least a indica and a sativa at the same time, just so I have a variety. And I'm looking to actually expand the shed a little bit and get a third room, which will open up time wise a quicker turnaround for vegging
Yeah.
and flowering.
More of that
So
perpetual.
yeah, a little bit more, and then I have like a seedling station that I use for cloning
Okay.
and that kind of thing, and so it's evolved quite a bit. And I just actually get some new fans. I'm kind of excited about inline fans,
Okay. Okay.
which I noticed that was one of the questions you were saying about gear. Um, you know, uh, can't stress enough about fans just to keep the airflow going. I mean, nothing worse than stagnant air.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And you get those little microclimates and whatnot. And I mean, I like having a couple different types of fans. You get some oscillating, you got some of those little box fans like the PC fans, and just throw them all over and make sure you got good airflow, but not the same continuous monotonous airflow either, because the plants may not like that.
Right, right.
Now, what about experimentation? I mean, you say you kind of got a set routine there. You like to scrog or sativa and indica. Do you like to change it up though? Tweak a variable, try something new each grow.
Um, well, I guess as of each grower, I have been doing something new. Um, and it's more of trying to develop my style of growing, I
Hmm.
guess. And that I want to be as organic as possible.
Yeah.
So each year I've gotten closer and closer to that point. And I think this indoor grow will be probably my first one that I'm trying not to use any bottled substance. So I'm going to do seed sprouting teas, worm castings, maybe some amendments. Um, I've tried live worms before, but I'm only in 7 gallon pots and the fabric pots, and I tend to run it a hair on the dry side.
Hmm.
And the worms don't like it that as much. They like the moisture, and like at work we use 20 gallon pots,
Yeah.
um, and covered with a layer of mulch and cover crop and worms, and once the harvest is done, they chop it off. The worms come in, eat the roots from the stub. You pull it out, you put a new plant in, and you're ready to go.
Rock
It's
and roll.
awesome, and that soil is going to be there for, well, I imagine as long as we take care of it,
Yep. Exactly.
it'll operate as it does. And I mean, you get tiny worms that are barely even born, it seems, and then you get big, huge night crawlers. So there's like a cycle of something going on inside that soil, for sure.
Yeah, good diversity of life and whatnot. That's the thing about the worms is they do maintain their population based off what they have available. So if you've got a healthy system, you're gonna have a lot of worms.
Yes, yes, definitely.
So going back to working in industry now, what was one thing that maybe surprised you or you underestimated as being in the legal industry?
Something that I've underestimated. Um, I think just the sheer size of it and the
Yeah.
amount of plants to be taken care of. You know, you know, we've got a fairly small crew for the size of the plant, for the amount of plants that we have, I think.
Mhm.
So we're doing well, but it doesn't leave us too much room for experimenting,
Yeah.
um, because things just need to keep rolling, like I was saying before, and kind of underestimated that for sure. That I was thinking more like, oh, we'll go in and get to do this little experiment here, maybe do some breeding, some cloning. Do cloning, we do transplanting, but it's just a much larger scale. And you don't take an hour out to transplant, you take 2 days, maybe 3 days,
Wow.
depending on how many people you got. I mean, we've done it in a day, but that's like six, 7 people transplanting. So each room holds approximately 400 to 500 plants. Yeah.
That's a
So
lot more than I got. So
yeah, same here. And I told them that. I said, my growing experience is good. I have the experience, but doing it commercially is something a little bit different. And you got to really take a step back and kind of look at it as a business and as something that you don't want to screw up.
yeah. There's a lot of plants, man, and as we know, like you can really muck up a plant bad if you do something really incorrectly and whatnot, and that's never fun. And
No.
that brings me to the subject of pests. You
Oh,
talked about it a little bit before, some of the IPM stuff that you guys do in the facility, but what about yourself? What's your IPM like at home? And to that point, have you ever lost a battle?
fortunate. I have not lost a battle.
Knock on that wood.
Yes, yes, yes. No, but for indoor, I've been fortunate. Fungus gnats have probably been my worst um, encounter with the indoor. And that is probably why I end up running my pots a little bit on the drier side.
Okay, okay.
It kind of fights against them. So if you like 7-gallon pot, you get fungus gnats on top, you let the top layer dry out a little bit, they'll kind of die off because they need all that moisture and thrive in the moisture and whatnot. So if you get rid of that, the numbers will go down, and put yellow sticky cards out, and usually that will take care of the problem. But I had spider mites last year in my greenhouse early in the season. So I ended up taking the cover off and just kind of let things go wild last year, and
Okay.
didn't really pan out as best as possible. So it was a tough battle with that. As of what I tried to spray, I tried to use organic type of sprays, fungicides, natural bacteria type of stuff, like the BTK for caterpillars, which is Bacillus
Yeah,
thuros. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the one. Yeah.
big long word. Yeah.
Yeah. So been using that, and fighting a little bit of white powdery mildew here in the outdoor and bud rot. But as of where I'm at, that's kind of like the expected come fall. And this year has just been crazy wet.
Yeah.
It's been raining like July. I don't think it had a dry day in July. And June's been wet, and the humidity and the morning dew and all that stuff adds up. And so I've been spraying with the fungicide to keep the bud rot and the powdery mildew at bay. And then, like I say, the BTK for the caterpillars, which I've only seen 1 or 2 small ones, but they say if you see one, then you get more.
That's typically how it is with the bugs, right? When you start finding one,
Yeah,
there's going to be at least a few.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but if you stay on it, I try to investigate every day, and just look for different signs on the plant that something just doesn't look right. if something doesn't look right, like a leaf just looks odd or an odd color, I flip it over, check the underside, check the top side. And because lots of times what can look like a deficiency can be bug infestation of some
Oh
type.
yeah.
And, so you never want to outrule the pest. So
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. We were having a conversation on the Discord on this. I think it was last week, and somebody asked a question. Like, what is your daily routine like? Like, if you see a deficiency or concern, what's the first thing you do? And for me, I say I like to reach for that pH pen and just make sure like the soil's on point, the water going in is on point, because I don't muck with my pH. Somebody else brought up the point of always think that it's going to be pests first, and that's a really good way to look at things, because when I first got my first thrip infestation, because I get them every year, I'm dealing with them right now. They came back again, but I've got a bottle of stuff. They're not too bad. It's just on the one plant. But it was, I looked at the plant and I started seeing these little silvering spots. And I thought, oh, this is weird. There must be some sort of a deficiency. And, let that go for a week and get more and scratch my head. And finally you see something crawling around on the leaf. And that was my first experience, with real pests in the grow room in that regard. So, I mean, just to suspect it's going to be a pest first and to treat it as such. And I mean, scoping is so important. Get in there and do that on a daily basis.
absolutely.
Now, bringing it out of the grow room, bringing it out of the grow room for a minute, if I can talk properly. I'm not going to edit that out either. What do you think we can do to reduce stigma around cannabis? Because some people still view it as the root of all evil.
Oh, I know. It's education.
Yeah.
I think is the main point. Just educating people that, I mean, it's not a bad thing. You're not a bad person for doing it. I mean, I don't want to compare it to any other substances because it's not like any other substance, I don't think. Like as of alcohol or cigarettes, and those seem to have more detrimental effects to the body and to the mind. But educating people is probably the number one thing that can be done. And I'm a believer too that, someone shouldn't be at least 18 or so to start consuming. And it's not like, oh, you're an adult now at 18, but there's brain development happening that can get screwed up. And, you really shouldn't. I mean, I started when I was 20, but I don't know. I just have to go with education is my main thing.
No, for sure. And that's the nice thing about it, is things become more legal and whatnot. The education is available, the science is there, the learning are there, and hopefully, eventually full acceptance is there.
Yes.
Let's go back in the grow room. Let's talk about some gear. And you kind of touched on fans there earlier, but what do you feel the most important piece of equipment is in your grow room, and why?
Well, the grow room would have to be probably the lights. I'm going to have to say.
Pretty crucial piece of equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of tough, but I have to go lights, then fans. Just because, well, you need the lights and you need air circulation. As I found, two things that are pretty much you have to have. Soil or whatever type of medium you're using. That's a relatively important subject. But yeah, I don't really have a favorite. I just got some new lights, some quantum boards, so this will be like the first real good run of them, and so far they've been doing good. The other lights I had were good, but they were cob lights, but the switches would fail on them pretty regularly. and they would just stop working, and then you wouldn't be able to turn the switch on and off and replace the switch, and then it would work again. And so that was a little disappointing. And the company's fix for it was to send me a box of a dozen so switches instead of sending a new light or fixing the problem.
We recognize the quality of our port design. Here's a bunch of parts. Yeah. It should last you until you're out of warranty.
So I'm sure you get that was one of the questions, a disappointing piece of equipment.
Yeah, that was the next one.
would be those lights that I had. But I'll have to say, as of like disappointing things, I used Rockwell to clone. I know people have great success with it. I had terrible success with that, and the rooting plugs. The best I've had is with the bubble cloner or air cloner or whatever you want to call it, the deep water cloners.
Yeah.
Most of the gear is important, even down to my turkey baster that I use to water.
That works.
A clear measurement, easy to reach into the pot. It's great for the young pots, young plants. And I think because watering is a huge underestimator of new people. I think
it's the most crucial skill. Yeah, for new growers, the most crucial skill is learning how to water your plants.
And even later, just getting the good feel of like how to feel a pot to see if it's light or not light. And it's a knack, anyways.
Oh, it certainly is.
Yeah.
So tell me now, Ernie, about what you'd consider to be your favorite grow that you've completed.
Favorite grow would have to be some ILGM seeds.
Okay.
From Green Crack and LSD I did.
Ooh.
Which both were actually, I think I won the LSD seeds from you way back, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Pretty sure it was, yeah.
And, hooked up a few people.
But that was probably that was like sort of my turning point of organics as well.
Yeah.
I was really into it at that point, and it's not that it was like the most phenomenal, but it just had the best flavor, really the smoothest smoke. And it was one of the buds that I got compliments from other people saying, it's like the best around. And nice. It kind of makes your head swell a little bit, but it's always nice to hear.
Yeah.
Because you always get the couple people that come by to smoke and you're like, so what'd you think? They're like, yeah, it worked. Okay, thanks.
Nice.
How about something else?
It's a lot of work that we put into getting these plants to where they're impressive, and being able to share and show off and whatnot. And that's one of the joys of it, especially if you've got a buddy who's into the plant and really enjoys it. Give them a big old bag of free herb and just
right.
Face lights up like yay.
Exactly.
Nice. So tell me then. Joints, dabs, bongs, something different perhaps? What's your preferred method of enjoyment?
Oh, well, I always go back to a joint, no matter what I do. The classic. I can't get away from them. But I love my bong rips. And never really got into the dab. I tried some vaping and stuff, but the vaping didn't really sit well with me as of like with my lungs or whatever. So I went back to the joint, and I break out the bongs every once in a while. I get a nice little water bubble, a little, personal small one, but that's always a nice to break out once in a while. But yeah.
Right on. Well, we're getting close to the end here. I got a couple of questions left, I should say. But before we ask those, Ernie, if somebody wants to catch up to you online, where do they find you?
I'm on Instagram as of Smokin Ernie, and yeah, follow along. I try to post up some stuff here and there, and also on Discord. Same thing, Smokin Ernie, and hopefully be thinking of podcast maybe, but it's a thought. I got to look into that a little bit more, but there may be an opportunity to listen to me more.
Awesome, awesome. And we definitely want to hear more about your experiences, especially, in these commercial facilities. There's so much that us home growers don't know about in these bigger places. And I definitely think there's some learning that could go on there.
Yeah, for
That
sure.
being said, what can we as experienced growers do more of to help the new grower out?
Not have an attitude.
Yeah, good answer.
Not have an attitude about it. Everybody's been there. Everyone started and fumbled with seeds and
Yep.
clones and killed this, that, and whatever else. Everybody's done it. And if you haven't, you're either lying or you're very lucky.
Yeah.
Yep. You've made mistakes here and there, and it's not over loving the plant is a good thing as well. If you constantly at it, watering it, touching it, doing this, doing that, it tends to die.
Yeah.
It dies from love, unfortunately, and sometimes the less the better. There'll be days that I water and I say, okay, I know I watered today, so I'm good. I don't have to go check tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I get the day off from having to water or really check the plant, because I know the day before I didn't have anything of an issue. So why would one day be an issue? And if it is, I'm going in the following day to water again. So you'll see an issue that pops up rather quickly anyway. So.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And that's a really interesting way to look at it, because the plant is going to tell you if something is off. Once you learn to stop fussing so hard over it and start listening to what it's saying, you're going to know. Some droopy leaves. You haven't watered in a couple days. Give it some water. Maybe a little yellowing on those lowers. She's hungry. There's so much that can be communicated to you from the plant if you just sit back and listen.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
We're getting down to that last question. This is what I like to ask everybody. What do you think the next big thing for cannabis is going to be, Smokin Ernie?
The next big thing, I think, federally legalized.
Yeah.
It's overdue, I'd say, and I think it's close to it.
Well, in the news today, Mr. Bezos's old company there, Amazon, is starting to lobby for legalization. I thought that was an interesting.
Well, that is interesting. Yeah, that's a big corporation to kind of have in your on your side for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And when I had Chad Westport on the first time, one of the things that he talked about was, just when corporate wants it legal, that's when it's going to happen. And maybe we are starting to see that turning of the tides. But do you think there's concern with players like Amazon getting into the game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to make it difficult for the home grower or the craft, micro climate or whatever, not microclimate, but the micro grows, or I can see that being maybe an issue, but anytime a large corporation gets involved, things can get kind of sticky.
Yeah, and not in a good way.
Yeah, there's too many pockets to need to get lined to make things roll, I would have to say, and not necessarily they all go the right way, and but yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. And hopefully the tides are changing, things are going to improve, and maybe it will be a little bit less corporate involvement and a little bit more for the home grower. But that being said, guys, Smokin Ernie, go check him out on Instagram. If you're not on the Discord already, reach out to me. Love to have you on there. We do cool conversations every Friday night talking about all sorts of cool stuff on the interactive discussion. And I know, Ernie, you helped us host one of those not too long ago talking about some natural farming. With that being said, we'll have to have you back for another episode to talk more about the natural stuff.
Absolutely.
And where we're going with that. But guys, there you have it. Fotosyntech, Meet the Grower, Smokin Ernie.
Peace.
We out.